Eli adjusted the weight of the training pack on his back, sweat dripping down his temples as he tried to keep pace with the rest of the unit. His boots slipped on the rocky slope, the gravity of the training planet just slightly heavier than Earth's, pulling against his every step. Ahead of him, the other cadets moved in a seamless rhythm, limbs honed by evolution or cybernetic enhancements. He was the last in line again, lagging far behind the pack, struggling just to breathe without wheezing. A sharp gust of wind caught his jacket, throwing him off balance for a moment before he corrected himself. No one looked back. The Intergalactic Defense Academy was the most prestigious military institution in the galaxy. Only the best of each species were admitted, and humans had been granted entry for the first time just 2 cycles ago. Among this year's class of elite cadets from across the stars, Eli stood out, not because he was remarkable, but because he wasn't. No exoskeletal armor like the Kraxan, no sensory reflex boosts like the Zalare, no psionic empathy like the Malin, just bone, flesh, and the stubborn determination to keep showing up. The others didn't bother hiding their opinion of him. Some were openly amused, like Sarek, a muscular Glazurian with ridged arms who loved to mimic Eli's gait in exaggerated stumbling parody. Others, like the twin Zalari siblings, simply pretended he didn't exist. There was no room for weakness in the academy, and Eli had quickly become the benchmark for it. During combat simulations, he was always the first to fall. In tactical challenges, he consistently failed to anticipate layered strategies. Even the obstacle courses, designed to be species numeral, found a way to highlight every one of his deficiencies. Still, he came back every day. The instructors, though impartial, seemed puzzled by him. Commander Tharos, a stern Noric veteran with metallic eyes, once told him during a debriefing, "Your persistence is admirable, but this place isn't built for persistence. It's built for excellence." Eli had simply nodded. He didn't have a grand speech. He didn't have a reason to prove the superiority of his species or reclaim some ancestral honor. He was just trying to not be the joke of the galaxy. That morning's trial had been a group endurance mission through the Ashtrek Gorge. The environment was unstable, riddled with sharp inclines, thermal vents, and collapsing ledges. The goal? Traverse 5 kilometers under full load, assess danger zones, and identify strategic fallback positions. Everyone else saw it as a chance to improve their ranking. Eli saw it as another 5 hours of humiliation. The comm in his ear buzzed. "Cadet Eli, your vitals are spiking. Are you dehydrated?" The voice belonged to Medic Enna, stationed at the mobile command trailer. "I'm fine," he grunted. "Your gait suggests ligament strain in your right knee. You may fall below minimum performance if this continues." "Understood," he replied, not slowing down. Just ahead of him, Sarek turned his head slightly, letting out a low chuckle that Eli could hear even without amplification. "Maybe if the human loses another 5 kilos of shame, he'll catch up," the Glazurian muttered. Eli ignored him. He'd heard worse. He told himself it didn't matter. Let them mock. Let them forget his name. If he could just make it to the end without collapsing, that would be enough. But the gorge had other plans. Near the 4th kilometer, the ridge narrowed into a thin bridge of blackened stone. The winds screamed between the cliffs like a banshee. Each cadet crossed with balance and fluidity. When it was Eli's turn, the wind pushed harder. Halfway across, his foot slipped on a loose shard. He fell, one leg dangling over the drop, his hands grabbing for anything solid. His chest heaved as he scrambled back onto the path, his backpack nearly sliding off his shoulders. No one stopped to help. Protocol forbade it during solo trials. That was the justification, but Eli knew the truth. None of them saw a reason to help the dead weight. When he finally dragged himself into the finish zone, the others were already rehydrating under the biotents. Commander Tharos glanced at the timer. "You're 19 minutes behind the last finisher." Again. Eli kept his gaze low. "Yes, Commander." The Norig stared at him, unreadable. "You're still here. I assume you want to remain?" "I do." "Then fix this, or next cycle Earth will have no representation." Later that night, in the dormitory cube assigned to single-species cadets, Eli sat on his bunk, staring at the deep blue glow of the stars through the observation slit. Around him, silence. Other cadets had holographic messages from family or watched battle footage for study. He had none of that. just a small journal he kept under the bed, filled with scrawled notes, maps of training zones, muscle recovery routines, and motivational quotes that had long stopped working. He heard footsteps in the hall. Sarek's voice drifted through the wall. "Maybe we should let the parasite bond with the human tomorrow. At least if it eats him, we'll be spared another round of pity training." The others laughed. Eli closed his eyes, his jaw tightening. Tomorrow's expedition would be a joint field mission, a rare chance to access one of the relic moons and engage in real-world contact with ancient technologies. The instructors had briefed them on a containment vault long abandoned, believed to house the last remnant of an extinct species known for bioweaponry. Rumors swirled of a creature inside, something alive, something old. The parasite was dormant, but sentient. A test, the commander had said. A chance to see which species could connect with it, wield it, understand it. Eli wasn't even on the official shortlist to try. He lay down, one arm under his head, letting the low hum of the Academy's life support systems lull him into rest. Somewhere, in a hidden chamber on that moon, the parasite waited. And, though he couldn't explain why, something inside him whispered, he would be the one to face it. Not because he was strong, but because no one else believed he should. The transport shuttle broke atmosphere in a trembling surge of heat and gravity, shaking gently as it descended onto the jungle moon of Iliros 9. The view through the forward window glowed a deep green, marked by shifting fog and flashes of purple lightning that danced across the storm-heavy skies. The cadets sat strapped into the harness bays, silent, focused. Eli sat in the rearmost seat, his fingers gripping the belt too tightly, his knuckles white. The briefing from Commander Tharos echoed in his ears, word by word, even as he tried to block it out. The vault has not been breached in 3,000 years. Any bond must be consensual. Host rejection will be violent. Proceed only if authorized. Iliros 9 was not a moon that welcomed visitors. Every file on the place was filled with warnings. Radiation spikes, biological threats, neuroconnective flora. But it was the vault that drew attention. The ancient Krathos containment site had been discovered a decade ago, buried beneath twisted root structures and petrified fungal columns. What exactly lay inside remained uncertain. A weapon? A living relic? Biological interface? All that was known came from scattered alien texts describing a parasite that bonded symbiotically to hosts, enhancing their capabilities, but frequently overwhelming their minds. The shuttle touched down in a clearing barely wide enough for the landing struts. Trees loomed in all directions, their bark pulsating with bioluminescence. The air hissed faintly as the hatch opened, releasing the squad onto wet ground. Eli's boot sank half an inch into the moss-like surface, which pulsed faintly, as if breathing. He tried not to focus on it. Captain Vale, a towering Zolari with a crystalline exosuit, activated her visor and raised one hand. "Proceed in formation. Vault is 2 kilometers north. Watch for flora resonance and maintain channel sync." Her voice was clipped and metallic through the comms. The squad moved as a unit. Sarek led the vanguard, spear in hand, scanning for heat anomalies. The Zolari siblings followed next, eyes glowing as they projected psychic fields to suppress ambient interference. Eli stayed near the rear again, rifle at the ready, even though deep down he knew it wouldn't matter. No one expected him to fire it. He wasn't even supposed to be here. His inclusion on the expedition had been a clerical anomaly. Commander Tharos hadn't noticed until departure, and by then it was too late to remove him without drawing attention. The jungle grew denser as they moved, the vegetation pressing in on all sides. Every plant seemed to twitch at their presence, leaves curling, stems retracting. At one point, a vine lashed out, narrowly missing a cadet's helmet before being incinerated by a pulse shot. The moon was alive in ways that defied logic. It wasn't just aggressive, it was reactive, watching. After nearly an hour of tense movement, the squad reached a jagged clearing shaped like a crater. In the center stood a black monolith, cracked but intact, its surface covered in foreign glyphs that shimmered red when touched by the wind. At its base lay a hexagonal hatch, sealed, cold, humming faintly. The vault of Karathos. "Set perimeter," Captain Vale ordered. The cadets fanned out. We go one at a time. If the parasite accepts contact, proceed to phase 2. If rejected, pull back. We do not override its choice. This is not a conquest. It is a negotiation. Sariq stepped forward first. His confidence oozed from every motion. He approached the hatch and touched his palm to the activation panel. A thin pulse of light ran up his arm, then faded. The hatch did not open. He grunted, placed both hands now, invoking a Glazurian warrior chant. The vault remained sealed. No reaction. One by one, the others tried. The twins. The Malan empath, a Drexian who had once lifted a starfighter with his bare hands. Nothing. The vault pulsed in response to some, but never opened. Some cadets were pushed back with sudden bursts of energy. Others simply felt nothing. As if they did not exist in the eyes of whatever lived within. Eli stood still at the edge, unsure what to feel. Relief? That he wouldn't be asked to try? Shame? That he wouldn't be worth the attempt? He watched as the final candidate stepped forward. Cadet Mirka, the top-runkled student of the entire class with multiple implants and neural expansions. Her fingers touched the glyphs, and for a moment the vault glowed bright blue. But then it flickered, hissed, and the glow vanished. She stumbled back, eyes wide. "It whispered to me," she said. Then it went silent. Captain Vale consulted her console, reviewing vitals. "All candidates failed. We will inform command." Eli didn't know what possessed him then. Perhaps it was the silence. Perhaps it was the aching fatigue of always being dismissed. Or perhaps it was something else. Something subtle. Something calling. His boots moved before he even realized it. Stepping out of line, the squad turned. Vale's voice sharpened. "Cadet Eli, stand down." But he was already walking. He approached the vault slowly, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. He felt no surge of destiny, no magic flowing through his veins, only fear. And something beneath it, recognition. The glyphs pulsed faintly as he came closer, a soft amber now instead of red. His hand hovered over the center of the hatch, trembling. Then he made contact. It was like falling into warm water. His mind snapped open. He was no longer standing in the clearing, but drifting through a sea of voices. Thoughts not his own. Memories not his own, war cries and languages he didn't understand. He saw flashes, claws, wings, galaxies burning, children crying. And then, silence. A single voice, deep and ancient, spoke. "You are not what I expected." He couldn't speak, but he thought the question, "Why me?" The voice answered, "Because you are the only one not trying to use me." The connection broke like shattered glass. Eli gasped as he came back to himself, collapsing onto one knee. The vault was open. The hatch had split into 6 equal parts, each receding into the ground. Cold mist poured from the interior. No one said a word. Captain Vale approached, scanning his vitals. "You're stable." Eli looked up. It spoke to me. Behind him, the others stood motionless, not sure whether to be impressed or horrified. The commander nodded slowly. "Then you're the first candidate. Step inside." Eli swallowed hard, rose to his feet, and crossed the threshold. Inside, the vault pulsed with green new light. Biotubes lined the walls, many shattered. At the center stood a pedestal, upon which hovered a black, fluid shape. No defined limbs, no eyes, just a coiling, twitching presence that pulsed with slow rhythm. The Parasite. It moved when it sensed him, not like a beast, not like a predator. It floated, circled him, studying. He did not run, he did not raise a weapon, he simply stood and met whatever gaze it might have had. Then, like smoke through skin, it entered him. Eli's vision darkened, his spine arched, pain bloomed down his arms like molten metal. But he stayed standing. He gritted his teeth. He did not scream. From the entrance, the others watched in silence. The parasite had rejected them all. Yet here it was, merging willingly with the weakest of them, and Eli did not fall. Eli awoke with a searing cold behind his eyes. He was lying on a medical slab in the field infirmary, surrounded by the low hum of monitoring equipment and the sterile scent of polymer gel. The light above him flickered slightly, casting dull shadows across the curved ceiling. His hands twitched. The sensation of foreign pressure ran through his limbs, not pain but density, as if something was inside him, coiled and resting. He didn't panic. He knew what had happened. The parasite had entered him. It hadn't devoured him. It hadn't overwhelmed his mind. It had joined. A voice broke through the haze. "He's conscious. Readings are stabilizing." He turned his head slightly and saw medic Enna standing by the console. Her usually neutral face held something resembling confusion, or perhaps caution. Captain Vale stood beside her, arms crossed, visor retracted. She was watching him as one might study a live weapon whose trigger had been welded open. Eli sat up slowly. No dizziness, no nausea. Instead, a startling clarity rang through him, as if every nerve had been polished. His joints no longer ached. His breathing was smooth, rhythmic. He didn't feel stronger, he felt more precise. "Do you know where you are?" Captain Vale asked. "Yes," he said. His voice sounded deeper, not dramatically, but as though something beneath it had settled. "I'm still on Ilaros 9. This is the mobile infirmary." She nodded. "The parasite Carathis merged with you. No one expected that. It rejected every other cadet, every high ranker. You weren't even on the list of volunteers. Do you have any idea why it chose you?" Eli looked down at his hands. His fingers didn't shake. "It told me I wasn't trying to control it, that I wasn't trying to use it." The captain exchanged a glance with Enna before speaking again. "Do you feel any aggression, any invasive thoughts?" "No." He hesitated. "It's not quiet, though. It's present, like a second heartbeat. Not pushing, just watching." "Stand up," she ordered. He obeyed. No strain, his legs felt steady. No imbalance. His awareness stretched beyond the tent. He could feel the vibrations in the ground, the direction of air currents, even the faint electromagnetic signature of the equipment nearby. It wasn't overwhelming, it was natural. Like he had always had this input but never known how to read it. Captain Vale circled him slowly. "You show no signs of rejection, no visible neurological spike. If the parasite is dormant, we need to test whether it responds to stimuli." "I think it's awake," Eli said, "but it's calm. It's not interested in showing off. Let's see if that remains true in the field." By midday, he had been escorted back to the squad. The mood had shifted. No one looked directly at him for long. Some whispered. Sarek glared as if betrayed by the universe itself. The twins from Zalari walked with deliberate distance. No words were spoken, but the tension was palpable. He had crossed a threshold that none of them had even approached. They resumed their mission deeper into the jungle, this time heading toward a secondary vault rumored to contain inactive spore hives. Captain Vale declared it the perfect opportunity to test Carathos' influence. The terrain became more hostile as they progressed. Vines that lashed without warning, pockets of toxic mist, nests of creatures that moved like shadows. Eli moved with the group, but he noticed the others watching him more than the jungle. Near the mouth of a collapsed tunnel, the team halted. The Zalari twins pointed toward a patch of quivering moss. "Residual biosigns. Something large passed through here, possibly still close." Captain Vale raised a fist, signaling a halt. "Defensive posture. Activate shields." Just as the shields deployed, the tunnel erupted. A massive insectoid creature burst from the soil, claws like bone scythes, mandibles dripping acidic foam. The cadets scattered, training kicking in. Sarek launched a harpoon bolt that bounced harmlessly off its carapace. One of the twins activated a psionic blast that merely stunned the beast for half a second. Eli didn't think, he moved. He wasn't faster than before in speed alone, he was predictive. As the creature lunged, he sidestepped with perfect timing, placing a hand on the ground. He felt the creature's rhythm through the earth, the muscle tension before its limbs moved, the precise angle of its weight shift. Carathos wasn't giving him commands. It was letting him read everything, redirect its momentum. The thought pulsed in his mind, not from the parasite, but from within. A new instinct, born of both minds together. He ran, drawing the beast's attention, weaving past its strikes, leading it toward a brittle slope of rock. When it lunged again, he planted his heel and pivoted, slipping past its leg and letting it slam full force into the ledge. The structure collapsed, trapping the creature beneath a rain of stone. Silence followed, then a slow, stunned breath from Captain Vale. Target neutralized. Sarek stared at Eli, disbelief etched into his face. That thing nearly killed us. Eli looked back, his voice steady. It didn't need to. Who taught you to move like that? One of the twins asked. No one, Eli replied. It's like I can see what things want to do. Not just physically, intentionally. Captain Vale stepped forward. The parasite is enhancing your cognitive modeling. You're reading aggression and intent before action. That's high-tier tactical awareness. Eli didn't reply. He didn't know how to explain it further. It wasn't just skill. It was empathy, but sharpened into something deadly. He could feel the creature's hunger, the panic, the confusion, and that allowed him to predict it. Karathos hadn't fed him information. It had opened his perception. The squad returned to base late, the sun dipping behind jagged mountain ridges. As the others unloaded gear, Eli sat alone on the edge of the clearing, his gaze fixed on his hands again. He clenched his fist slowly, then released. Karathos, he thought silently. Can you hear me? There was no voice, no words, but he felt a pulse in his chest, a kind of affirmation. What are you really? Images bloomed in his mind. Not visions, but echoes. Creatures, hosts, violence, burning skyships, fear, rejection, centuries in the dark, waiting, hating, hoping. Karathos had once been a weapon. It had been used, forced to bond with generals, assassins, tyrants. Each time the host had craved dominance. Each time the bond had broken in madness. And now, finally, it had found something different. A host who hadn't reached out with ambition, but with presence. Not a master, not a servant, a companion. I won't let them cage you again, Eli whispered aloud. From the shadows behind him, Captain Vale's voice answered. We won't, as long as you remain stable. He turned, surprised. You were listening? Monitoring. You're not just a cadet anymore. You're something else. And the command will want to study it. Eli stood. Will they try to separate us? They might. Will you let them? She hesitated. If I thought you were a danger, I would have already tried. He met her gaze, firm. Then let me prove I'm not. She nodded once. Tomorrow. Full simulation. You'll lead. Eli inhaled slowly. Karathos stirred, not with anticipation, but with understanding. Tomorrow he would lead. The weakest cadet, now bonded with the most feared organism in the quadrant, would stand at the front, and everyone would be watching. The artificial sun inside Simulation Dome 7 hung low above the jagged terrain of the mock battlefield, casting elongated shadows across the sand-scorched ridges and jagged obsidian spires. From the command balcony above the dome, instructors observed through a multi-angle glass viewport, data streams cascading along the side panels. Captain Vale stood behind the glass, with her arms folded, eyes narrowed. Below, the cadets stood in formation, armored, silent. At the center of the line, Eli adjusted the combat gauntlet, now integrated with the parasite's neural interface. It pulsed once beneath his skin, acknowledging the environment. He had not slept, not because of anxiety, but because Karathos did not sleep. Instead, it processed, it remembered. It simulated scenarios, feeding impressions into his subconscious. All night he had dreamed of tactics, not war, but movement, pressure, consequence. His mind had become layered, like multiple processors working in parallel. He remained human, but his cognition had shifted. Emotions still came, but no longer clouded. They passed through him like currents, acknowledged but unweighted. The simulation began with a shrill tone. Holographic terrain shifted. A fleet of hostile drones burst into the sky from recessed vaults, followed by synthetic war beasts with rotating limb configurations and infrared targeting. The rules were clear. Eliminate threats, protect the central relay station, minimize squad casualties. The command console above measured reaction time, efficiency, cohesion. Eli had been placed in charge not temporarily, not as a placeholder, but officially designated as squad leader. He moved first. Zarek, flank west, set sonic traps along the approach ridge. Zelari twins project shield spheres around the comm tower. Drexian, hold the eastern choke with staggered pulse bursts. I'll draw frontline attention. Sarek hesitated a fraction of a second, barely perceptible but telling. The others moved without delay. Eli launched forward, not waiting for agreement. The parasite surged within him, but did not pull. It listened, watched, learned. As he approached the first wave of drones, he dropped into a slide beneath a strafing run, planting a magnetic spike on the undercarriage of the lead bot. It detonated a second later, releasing a disabling EMP burst that knocked out 5 surrounding units. He rolled forward, absorbing the recoil from a blast that should have winded him. The parasite had reinforced his musculature, not with mass but with support, invisible and fluid. Across the field, Sarek's traps activated. The sonic pulses confused the tracking of the synthetic beasts, forcing them into the kill zone of the Drexians' pulse bursts. Zalari's shielding held against aerial bombardment. For the first time since the squad's formation, their movements were not just coordinated, they were synchronized. Eli's voice cut through the channel. Shift pattern. Enemy morphers incoming from the northern wall. Redirect crossfire 30-degree pivot. The command was executed instantly. The morphers' beasts capable of redistributing their mass lunged toward the relay station but were caught mid-acceleration by a net of plasma arcs laid by the twins. Their bodies disintegrated mid-gaze. Captain Vale murmured something behind the glass. One of the senior instructors turned. He's not just commanding. He's predicting 2 moves ahead. He's reading intent, she replied, not strategy, instinct. Below, Eli moved through the chaos like a fixed point in a storm. He did not fire wildly. He placed shots with surgical accuracy. He did not dodge out of panic, but because his nerves fired seconds before danger registered. He saved 2 cadets from collapse by reassigning positions before any threats breached their defense arcs. He never raised his voice. He never panicked. And most unsettling of all, he never smiled. The simulation ended after 19 minutes. The relay stood untouched. All units remained operational. Total threats eliminated. 73. Casualties 0. The dome's light dimmed. The battlefield disappeared. The cadets stood amid a neutral grid, catching their breath. Eli removed his helmet and looked around. The others stared at him, not with contempt, but with uncertainty. Some with awe, others with discomfort. Sarek said nothing. His jaw remained set. Captain Vale descended from the command level and entered the grid. Debriefing in 20 minutes. Dismissed. The others filed out. Eli remained. She approached him, stopping a meter away. You didn't hesitate once, she said. I saw everything I needed to, he replied. And how do you feel now? He considered the question. Not different, just quieter. Like, I finally understand the language everyone else was speaking all along. Is it you? She asked. Or Karathos? He met her eyes. Both. She said nothing for a long moment. Then she gestured for him to follow. They left the dome and walked through the central corridor toward the secure wing, a place off-limits to most cadets. As they passed biometric gates, she keyed in her override credentials. The doors opened into a white chamber lined with neural interfaces, memory projectors, and containment cuffs. Inside, a hologram played on repeat, ancient footage from before the parasite was sealed. Hosts losing control, cities falling. One showed a soldier who obliterated his own command ship after the parasite bonded too tightly and consumed his identity. This is why the command wants it studied. Not as a tool, but as a threat, she said. I'm not like them, Eli said. No, but you're not immune. Karathos wasn't built to bond. It was built to be obeyed, or to dominate. Eli stepped closer to the hologram, watching a man tear off his own armor and scream as the parasite twisted around his spine. It doesn't push me, he said. It waits. She nodded. Because you don't want power. I don't even know what I want. She raised an eyebrow. Then you're the most dangerous host of all. That night, Eli sat on the roof of the barracks alone. The moon above was real, not part of simulation. Illyros 9 circled a dying star, and in the silence he felt its decay. He closed his eyes and reached inward. Karathos, he thought, why me? Why did you wait all this time? This time the presence answered with memory, not words. A broken cell, centuries of silence, echoes of pleading minds, desperate for strength, power, revenge. All of them had wanted the parasite to make them more, stronger, invincible. None of them had asked it what it wanted. Eli saw an image of a child, alien, small, sitting in the dark. That had once been Karathos, before weaponization, before containment, before betrayal. "You want peace?" Eli whispered. A single pulse of confirmation shivered through his nerves. "And you're afraid I'll become like the others?" No reply, just stillness. Eli looked out over the jungle. He understood now. He was not just bonded, he was trusted. And with that trust came danger. Not to himself, but to others. Because if he lost that trust, if the parasite ever sensed ambition, domination, pride, it would defend itself. Violently. He would have to remain not only strong, but pure. And in a world that demanded survival through power, purity was the rarest form of resistance. The parasite slept, but he did not. The alert klaxons began as a soft tone, barely noticeable above the background hum of the Academy's systems, but within seconds the sound sharpened, deepened, and bled into every corridor. Eli stepped away from the training console and turned his head toward the nearest ceiling strip. The lights had shifted from white to red. Something was wrong. A second later, Captain Vale's voice echoed over the internal channel. "Unidentified vessel breach, multiple energy signatures descending from upper atmosphere. All cadets, report to central hangar. Level 4 emergency protocol." Eli didn't need further instruction. He was already moving. The parasite stirred inside his chest, alert but not agitated. It sensed danger but not yet violence. He sprinted through the hallway, vaulting over a turned-over drone transport, and emerged into the hangar, where the cadets were forming ranks, many still adjusting their suits or locking in their weapons. Captain Vielle stood at the center, issuing commands while coordinating with off-site defense systems. 3 drop pods confirmed. Unauthorized landing. Faction insignias are scrubbed, but weapon signatures match Black Prism Mercenary tech. They are not here by accident. Sarik approached her from the side. "This is an assassination run, or a retrieval," she muttered. Her eyes flicked to Eli. He understood immediately. "They're here for Karathos," he said quietly. She nodded once. "We intercepted a low-frequency burst from Aliros 9 3 days ago. Probably a rogue satellite picked up the reactivation signal from the vault. Someone paid to track it. The twins joined, weapons powered. If they get in and extract it, they won't," Eli said. "Why would mercenaries risk a full Academy assault team?" Sauriek asked. "They're not trying to win," Captain Vale replied. "They're trying to cause disruption, just enough to destabilize the bond and make extraction possible." Eli didn't wait for further orders. "Where's the breach vector?" "Landing zone 4, northeast quadrant," she answered. "You'll be first contact. We'll back you with heavy response if needed." Eli turned and ran toward the launch doors. The parasite surged in agreement. He didn't need to draw it out. It wasn't a power to be summoned. It was part of him now. And for the first time it reached forward too, not taking over, but aligning. The northeast quadrant had already been hit. 2 drone towers lay half-collapsed, smoldering, while smoke curled from a ruptured storage module. Eli slowed as he approached the breach point, his senses fully stretched, his skin prickling from microcharged particles in the air. Then movement, fast and purposeful. 3 mercenaries emerged from the far wall, clad in black adaptive armor with ripple-laced blades along their forearms. Behind them hovered a cylindrical drone, scanning for biosignatures. One mercenary spotted Eli and raised his weapon. He didn't dodge, he preempted. His body moved half a second before the mercenary's finger twitched. He dived to the left and came up in a low sweep, forcing the first attacker to redirect his strike into empty air. Eli launched upward, his knee slamming into the man's ribs. Armor cracked. The drone aimed a paralysis beam. Eli dropped flat, rolled beneath a broken wing panel and sprang to his feet behind the second mercenary. His palm, now webbed with faint lines of parasite seam, struck the man's helmet with perfect timing. Static flashed and the visor went black. The man crumpled. The last mercenary activated a shield pulse and stepped back. "We don't want the host, just the parasite," he said, voice muffled. "You can't separate us," Eli said. "We have a way." "No," Eli replied. "You have a weapon. That's different." He advanced slowly. The parasite flared once along his spine, not in aggression, but in warning. Something was building in the drone. The mercenary dropped a charge grenade. Eli grabbed a shattered support beam and deflected the blast back. It erupted behind the attacker, blowing open the floor. Smoke roared up, and Eli leapt through it, catching the last mercenary mid-shoulder and driving him to the ground. His fist hovered an inch from the helmet, but he didn't strike. The parasite surged, but not violently. He could feel its urge to defend, to finish, but it did not press. It waited for his choice. He stepped back. Captain Vale arrived moments later with 6 cadets and 2 instructors, weapons raised. "All 3 down?" Eli nodded. "Alive." She looked at him. "You held back. They wanted to provoke a reaction, to prove I wasn't in control," he said. "Let's prove them wrong," she replied. Later that night, Eli stood in the council chamber, a space rarely entered by cadets. The High Command reviewed the data from the battle, his biometrics, parasite response levels, neural activity. They asked questions, tested his memory retention, emotional equilibrium, response lag. He answered without pride or apology. One of the senior officials finally spoke. "You neutralized 3 mercenaries, saved 6 cadets from exposure to illegal chemical agents, and retained full integration with a Class A sentient parasite without loss of cognitive identity." "Yes," Eli said. "Do you understand what this means for our protocols?" the man asked. "You're not just a cadet. You are the first viable Karathos-integrated being in known galactic history. That puts you under high-security classification." "I'm not a weapon," Eli replied. "No," the man agreed. "But weapons are made. You are becoming." Eli didn't answer. The parasite within him was quiet, not suppressed, simply at peace. He stepped back and saluted. "If I am to serve, I'll do it on my terms. You'll be watched," the councilman said. I already was. Eli was dismissed from the chamber not with punishment, but with silence. That silence said more than words. 2 weeks later, Eli stood once more in the simulation dome, not as a cadet under trial, but as an instructor in training. New recruits entered the field, and among them were humans, aliens, hybrids. He issued commands gently, his voice calm, his posture composed. From above, Captain Vale observed him. "He has balance," she said quietly to the senior analyst beside her. "And the parasite?" the man asked. "It no longer wants war," she said, "because it has found something better." "What's that?" She smiled faintly. "A reason not to fight." Eli moved across the field, correcting a recruit's stance. The lines on his skin were no longer glowing, they had faded into him. Part of his anatomy now neither foreign nor dominant. He did not seek leadership, but others followed him. He did not crave power, but power respected him. He had been the weakest. Now he was the shield, and no one would ever overlook him again.